Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Venari podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Paula Dalstalber, and I work within the R&D practice at Venari Partners, leading the neuroscience and rare disease offering. So today, as part of our R&D hiring strategy series, I'm joined by Dr. Chris Winrow, CSO of Lucy Therapeutics. Chris is an expert in the neurodegeneration space with over 20 years experience in pharma and biotech, both in research, translational, and clinical roles. So today we'll be discussing best hiring practice for new areas in fast growth biotech. Great to have you here, Chris.
Thank you, Paula. Very nice to be here, and happy to talk to you today.
I'd love to start off our conversation, maybe if you could tell me a little bit about, your background, about your role at Lucy, and also just a little bit more about what Lucy is currently doing.
Yeah, absolutely, glad to. So I'm CSO at Lucy Therapeutics. We are a early stage company in Waltham, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston. We're focused primarily on mitochondrial dysfunction and how that plays a role in a range of different diseases. And so it's a really exciting opportunity to pioneer some work and develop therapies in ways that haven't been done before. In terms of my background, I'm a neuroscientist by training. I was at the Salk Institute for my postdoc, and then after that joined Merck, and I was at Merck for about 15 years. As you said, primarily working in the early discovery space, so target identification and validation, and then moved to the West Point campus and had the opportunity to follow some programs through. I became program lead, and then was engaged in some early clinical, moving into late clinical, and ultimately commercial launch. And so, really had that nice view across the industry. From there, I joined a mid-sized company called Ironwood Pharmaceuticals in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And really great opportunity to work on the neuroscience aspects there. We spun out a company, so going into a smaller company called Cyclerion, and that was where I had the opportunity to advance therapies and moved into a number of clinical studies, including one which was in a mitochondrial disease called MELAS. And so that was sort of my first experience working closely, looking at mitochondrial targeting and working there. And so really was excited when the opportunity presented itself to join Lucy Therapeutics earlier in 2023, join that team, and we're really doing a lot of exciting work there.
Very, very exciting things. I've heard lots going on. And from that, two questions initially spring to mind. I think we're seeing a lot more translational than we ever were before. The role of really linking that preclinical to that clinical side. So I'd love to see, how do you see the role of translational? What specific skills or experience would you look for when hiring a translational scientist?
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think an appreciation for translational research has really started to emerge over the past few years, and certainly during my time, I've really worked hard to build that in early on, actually, into the discovery stage of drug development and discovery. And it's what we do at Lucy. I mean, we really look for those aspects of how you measure the endpoints in your non-clinical studies, how you can then follow that through as you think about, first of all, your phase 1 healthy volunteer studies, moving then into patient studies. And I think overall, I see translation as really building those bridges. So first, the bridge from bench work and the non-clinical studies and really sort of biomarkers or endpoints that you can engage there. Then as you think about going into the clinic, what can you carry through? And are you looking at the exact same sort of endpoints as you move along? And then the second bridge actually comes between those phase 1 studies in healthy humans when you now move into the patient. And because there can be differences there, but I think it's really important to look at measuring the same endpoints, carrying along the same sort of biomarker strategies to really get value from evaluating the new approaches for your target.
Very interesting. There's such a new focus, biomarkers. There's so much that we need to still look at. And it kind of ties into my second question is, the whole mitochondrial aspect. It's such an emerging space for the biotech area in general, but also for CNS drug development. So I'd love to hear a bit about, the challenges, the opportunities that you do find when trying to find the best talent for this space.
Yeah, so I think targeting mitochondria, there's just different companies that have been taking these approaches. I think it still is unique, and our approach is particularly unique. Well, first of all, we're looking at CNS, diseases, and so that brings along another level of complexity in a lot of ways. But the way that we actually target mitochondrial function, I think, is a little different. And so there it's sort of finding those nexus points, we call them, where you have multiple symptoms of disease, you have multiple aspects of dysfunction in mitochondria, and then finding those targets that are at that intersection. And so I think this is a different approach. It's been very productive for us. We've been able to advance, this type of an approach for Parkinson's disease as well as for Rett syndrome. And I think your second question about finding, talent and people to help us on that journey, there's great scientists all over, and I think really tapping into the network, whether it's locally or globally, is really what we try and do. But I think there's a number of different aspects there. You look for people who are adaptable, people who are willing to take some calculated risks, willing to try new technologies, and really purpose build those type of approaches to support the programs. And I think secondly, it is also finding individuals who have that focus on drug discovery and development and that ultimate goal. So there's a lot of great academic research that gets done, particularly in the mitochondrial space, phenomenal biology that's there and a lot to be explored. And we need to balance that with focusing on delivering the therapies for patients. And so, those type of skill sets, people who are good scientists, willing to adapt, but really maintain that end goal in mind as they're doing their work.
I can see this type of personality being exactly what you need to hire in your team. But when it comes to the leadership team, small biotech, fast growth, emerging area, what are your thoughts on how to build the best leadership team in that space?
In the building stage, you want to be clear about what you're building towards, right? So what gaps are you trying to fill? What type of a team are you trying to build? So what are you trying to add? And I'm actually a very big proponent of building teams with members that have complementary skill sets and sort of diverse backgrounds as well. And I think that adds a lot of value. I think that adds diversity of thought, diversity of approaches, helping in troubleshooting or thinking about the strategy and building the vision. Again, at Lucy, our CEO, Amy Ripka, is a talented, amazing medicinal chemist. I am not a medicinal chemist, and I enjoy working with medicinal chemists, but that's not my background. And I think it's an example of how in the leadership team, we bring diverse perspectives. And I think that really brings strength to the team. I think secondly, collaboration is critical. So really finding individuals who enjoy collaborating, and that's the way that they like to work. Not everybody does, and that's fine. But I think for the leadership team, it really is important to build that in. And third, I think it's also balancing technical and business skills. So really bringing those type of scientific rigor and that type of an approach, but also complementing that with strategic approaches and appreciation for the business and understanding how it functions. And then I guess lastly, I'd just say I really like the idea of identifying individuals who are connectors. So folks who are really good, have great networks, either professional networks and scientific networks, but really enjoy seeing where there's differences in approaches and bringing those together to synergize. So I think if you build those type of skills, sort of that diversity of approach, the collaboration, technical scientific skills and business, as well as that connector phenotype, I think that really helps to build a strong leadership team.
Chris, just to finish on a bit of a more future-facing question, I'd love to hear about your thoughts on the next 5 to 10 years. How do you think the hiring landscape might change in biotech? It's
a great question. I think we've certainly seen a lot of change over the past couple of years in a lot of different ways. And I think for biotech, really, I think there's a lot of value that sort of gets back to an earlier question of identifying team members that have a diversity of experiences and sort of tapping into folks who've worked in academic centers or large pharma, smaller companies, tech companies, and really bringing those diverse approaches to bear. I think that's something that will be great to see grow as we continue in the future. And I think this diversity really adds value to companies. Secondly, there's really been a strong move towards collaborations and partnerships in industry. And I think tapping into those external resources and not having to build everything internally, really finding experts on the outside to help us with our problems that we're trying to face really is key. And I think it's also in the hiring side important to have some internal expertise to help us when we're doing those type of studies. So really an internal scientist to take ownership of that outside collaboration, to bring their expertise to the design of the studies, and also to critically be able to analyze the results when they come back in. And I think, finally, I think we're going to see creative ways that we continue to integrate talent and identify opportunities, with less reliance on location. So ability to globally tap in and locally tap into phenomenal individuals and opportunities, and really, capitalizing on some of the tools that we use for, our day-to-day work, but really building in that mindset that it doesn't matter where the talent is or where the opportunities are, we're able to engage. So, I think at Lucy, we've really taken this view towards the future as well. I think, we continue to build our phenomenal team with, diverse backgrounds. We really capitalize on the best external expertise and working with good collaborators and partners on the outside. And really, we're always looking to find passionate team members, whether it's locally or globally, to join our mission to, address mitochondrial dysfunction.
Thank you very much for coming on, and it's been a pleasure to have you.
Great. Very nice speaking with you today. Thank you.